So with this pre-Rift release event for Spiritforged, we're going to be going over the best cards of each color that you're going to want to be drafting. Which ones might you want to stay away from? Well, we're going to be going into that kind of deep dive for each and every color, starting right now. So this can be a little bit of a difficult thing because, yeah, a lot of you might have seen some deck gameplay and some things here and there, might have done a deep dive into the set yourself, but otherwise, you might not have done really any playtesting or had much familiarity with what is included here. If so, awesome, that's going to be absolutely great for you, but if not, well, we're going to be diving in a little bit to see what is in store for us, and it can be a little bit difficult sometimes, especially when trying to pick the correct colors and figuring out what's going on with everything in every which way, and you're like, well, I have maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes to draft my deck. Time is of the essence there. Now, here's going to be the big thing, and yeah, there is going to be that caveat where we're not going to necessarily be looking at the rares in particular. The rares are going to be a big difference maker potentially for your deck, and if you hit one in particular, awesome, that's going to be great for you. But again, they're rares. You get, two a pack, and again, if you're lucky at that. And so it can be a little bit difficult to say, hey, if you get this rare, yeah, Instead, we're going to be looking at the commons and uncommons to best help build your deck here. So with that being said, for those of you who still don't know, we're going to be doing a quick recap on how the pre-Rift events are going to be working. First off, you get a little deck box. It's really awesome. And it comes with a pre-constructed 15 cards that's going to have one of 6 legends that are predetermined, a champion, then a promo card, and a battlefield, and then 12 cards that are to help you build your deck. You will take that and the 5 packs that you get and be able to build a 25 card deck. You can also use up to 3 colors, and I do strongly urge you to bring your own runes, because there are going to be none provided. Again, at our local game store, we have said that if you don't have runes necessarily, or if they're a little bit scarce, because they are a little bit scarce, then feel free to bring something to represent that color. If you are playing Order, for example, feel free to bring some electric energy kind of things, or, something to at least determine what that color is, because sometimes runes can be a little scarce, surprisingly. And so that's what happens when there is maybe a little bit of a shortage there, and they are finally releasing a rune pack. But again, that's probably going to be being sold out anyway. So bring your own runes. But it's going to be interesting because with the 6 legends and the ability to use 3 colors, there can be a lot of confusion with that. And so we're going to be breaking those down in the future videos, so stay tuned for that. But if you want more of a detailed list of what those 6 pre-made decks, those 12 cards that are going to be used, and what those legends and champions are, I will link that in the description, or it is going to be the 2 videos ago that I have made at this point. So things to keep in mind with that. So with that, it's going to be fun to see how this all plays out, because each color has its own power grade here, essentially. I mean, first and foremost, purple is probably the one that got the biggest buff. Now, with that, purple is incredibly powerful, but it also has a lot of help with set 1 cards, and those going hand in hand is what made chaos so prevalent. So it's like, yeah, it still is going to be a really powerful option. Then also, I would say even after that, probably, body is going to be the next powerful one. You got things like Punch First and other cards that we are going to be diving into that you get to utilize that really makes your deck powerful. And then even after that, I would say probably green and red are the next 2 most powerful. Green is a little bit iffy, though, because there's some things that need to be, with like Aurelia, for example, where you want to be targeting. And there's not necessarily a whole ton of cards that do target. That's going to be the hard part there. And so it's like, well, what do we do about that? Because we don't have Discipline on guard, because that's in Origins. but there are still some very powerful options, and red has a lot of the aggression, really good equipment, blood rush. You also have like bushwhack and things like that to be able to utilize, and even Jim Jam, which can give your unit ganking to go from one battlefield to another. And that's going to be probably the biggest thing about this sealed event that you are going to be participating in as a pre-rift, is that this is not going to necessarily be a bunch of removal, going back and forth, and using your spells to get ahead necessarily. Whereas I think the spells, the equipment, and things like that are going to be giving your units the higher mights, because the battles are going to be happening a lot more, are going to be playing a much bigger impact. That's why purple with like Overzealous Fan is going to be so vital, because of the ability that it does to give you that advantage in these types of showdowns. And so again, it's not going to necessarily be that you have to worry about the removal like with Singularity or Rebuke. Instead, it is going to be I need to get over your might. And so, at least from what I've been able to research and test in my own regard, that's what it's looking like. So, without any further ado, let's dive into what these colors are. Now, first and foremost, we are going to be starting with red. And I gotta say, red, like I said, is probably the second or probably the third or fourth best color here. It has a lot of really good stuff to be able to add without much to really pay in the sense of power. So that's something to keep in mind. I think that red could be a great color combination for you to use if you want to include a third color. The big reason why I say that is you look and there is very little power cost in the commons and uncommons. Yes, I mean, if you have something like an equipment, then you are going to maybe want to create some gold for that. But a lot of the units and a lot of even the spells are pretty solid in what they are able to do. First and foremost, one of the really good cards that can make a big difference for you is probably Against the Odds. One, it targets your own units, which is really good because cards like Not So Fast will be countering your spells if you target your opponent's units. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. But the big reason why I love Against the Odds is because it says that you give a friendly unit at a battlefield +2 might this turn for each enemy unit there. Someone wants to be like, you know what, I'm at 6-7 points. I'm just going to go and reinforce one battlefield and see if I can hold till 8. And you're like, well, thanks for doing that. I got Against the Odds. I'm going to be adding 2 for each of those equipment or each of those units that are at that battlefield. And sometimes I've been able to add 8. There was a time where I was able to use Against the Odds and a couple of other like equipments and things like that to where I got Jim Jam up to 20 might. And that was actually a really cool. I loved that match. That was so fun. And Jim Jam actually won me the game. So love that. And so I do really like Against the Odds. But again, I think this showdowns are going to be a bit more straightforward, where I have one unit out, you have one unit in a battlefield, I'm going to attack in. I'm holding now with one unit, you attack in with your unit. That's what's so that's the caveat there. And I really feel like that it is not going to be so powerful, but again, that 2 extra might, even for 2, can be a really big difference maker. But even above that, I would be using Blood Rush. Blood Rush is so incredibly powerful. You can go and give a unit Assault +2, or Assault 2, which gives +2 might while it is an attacker. Again, that is going to be very big to help you take battlefields. But more importantly is that it can be repeated. Now, when you repeat it, you can pick 2 different units. You can pick the same unit twice. So if you need to take a battlefield pretty bad, well, you added 4. That's really powerful, especially for that kind of swing. Again, I absolutely love what that is able to do. Next, I do like Bushwhack. If you are going to be running red, it can be a very powerful card to help get you back in this game. Aggression is going to be rewarded here in this sealed event. There's not going to be a lot of ways for you to get your units out fast. There are a couple of units that have an acceleration, but that's about it. And they're going to be at that higher rarity, so they are a lot more rare. So I mean, if there's going to be a way for you to really catch your opponent off guard, they think that you have to rebuild your battlefield or your base in this case, and then attack in. All right, I'm okay with that. And I'm going to be able to attack in pretty powerfully with Bushwhack. And it even says that I am able to create a gold gear token exhausted. So, I mean, if you're able to get a couple of units even out that enter ready with Bushwhack, that can be a really big difference maker. Now, again, if you are going with a lot more of equipment, if you did pull something, Armed Assailant could be really good with that. Again, he can be accelerated, though he has a 6 cost with a power. So if you do accelerate him, that's going to be 7 and 2 power. If you don't have a lot of gold generation, I might stay away from him. But again, in a sealed event, these higher might units are going to be putting in so much more work because of that. And so, he might be worth that cost. But not only that, he does have Weapon Master. So if you are running a lot of equipment, he then is going to have the ability to attach an equipment from somewhere on the board, which can be a big difference maker. And then if you accelerate him, you can immediately go in and probably take over a battlefield at that point. So it's a great way, mid to late game, more late game than anything, to surprise your opponent. But again, it depends on that kind of dynamic that you have in the deck, which is why, I would maybe stay away. Void Drone is really good if you have Rek'Sai, but again, you have a 1 out of 6 chance of actually pulling Rek'Sai, so I would necessarily stay away from that. It is a common, though, but it says it costs 2 less to play from anywhere other than your hand. Well, that is, again, if you pull that for Rek'Sai, awesome. Keep that. If you don't, though, it's kind of just going to be a dead card. It's a 3 for 3, which still isn't horrible. But again, there's going to be some ways to really cheat it out in this case if you do play Rek'Sai, but otherwise, likewise, Angle Shot is going to probably be pretty good for you to have. It's an uncommon that can be played at reaction speed. You can choose a unit and an equipment with the same controller, attach that equipment to that unit, or detach that equipment from a unit, draw 1. So if you're going against Jax or Lucian, which are both 2 of the random legends that you are able to pull from your pre-rift packs, Angled Shot is going to be a really great card for you to include. Also, no power cost, and you get to draw 1. So that can be a really big difference maker. Battering Ram, I'm a little bit iffy on. The big reason why I'm iffy on that is it can be a really good card, but you need to be able to play 2 or 3 cards to be able to make his cost kind of worthwhile there. That can sometimes be a little bit hard. We don't have a lot of like the 1 costs or the gear, or the seals or things like that. And so it can be a little bit harder, especially in a sealed event, to get this to where it's cost effective. If you want to take that risk, or you find that you do have a lot of low cost units, that's really great. But again, you're not going to necessarily have a whole ton of card draw in your arsenal, in your deck. And so it's going to make it harder to utilize Battering Ram properly, and he is a very exciting card. We've seen him make a lot of impacts in this meta, but at the same time, you're going to want to stay back a little bit on that because it could just be a little bit, it could be kind of that trap where it looks really good, but in the end, it's going to be kind of shutting you down. Now, one card that I've seen that's been putting in a lot of work has actually been Minotaur Reckoner. It's kind of gone under the radar in the meta, but it's a really solid option here because it just says that units can't move to base. It's a 5 for 5. Yeah, does that kind of suck? Sure. But when your opponent has a card that is trapped in a battlefield, too bad. There's also not necessarily a lot of ganking abilities out there in a sealed event. And so it's like, cool, you're trapped there. And you play a unit that is really big, and they're like, well, I don't have necessarily the answers in hand to deal with that, and they're just going to lose. And so that's going to be one of the biggest things, is that Minotaur Reckoner is going to be a really good unit for you to just be able to really kind of punish your opponent, and it can do a good job at catching them off guard. Again, though, one thing that's going to be interesting, I don't necessarily love Recurve Bow. It says when I attack or defend, deal 2 to an enemy unit here. Again, that can be pretty good depending on the matchups in early game. There are a lot of really, there's a lot of ways for you to be able to hold a battlefield in this case, but opponents are going to be seeing this and being able to play around it. Again, it can't stay them away from attacking into a battlefield, but I mean, that's only for so long at that point. And so it's not necessarily worth playing, whereas Serrated Dirk might be. It gives Assault 2 and is able to be played for 1 and equipped for 1. At 1 red at least, to recycle. So that again can be pretty dang good there. And again, the rest of these are going to be rares. And again, if you pull these as rares, you're going to be in a good position to be able to utilize this. I mean, I really love Rengar, and I think he probably is going to be one of the best rares for you to be able to pull. Piercing Light can also be incredibly good, being able to deal 2 to a unit at a battlefield and deal 2 to another unit, one other unit anywhere on the board. Really good. It can also be repeated for 2 and a power, and that can really devastate boards. Longsword being able to be played at quick draw is going to be insane. And if you even pull the signature spell, definitely use that. The Draven signature spell can be so good. 2 for 2 and 1 power to be able to add 3 is going to win you showdowns. And so super powerful. But again, these are already going to be super rare. So it's kind of wishful thinking on if you actually pull them, use them. Otherwise, you know, you don't necessarily need to. Next, of course, we're going to be looking at green here. Now, the one thing that I really do like about green is the power that it's going to be giving you here. Now, one of the reasons why I love green so much is that it has a ton of card draw with some really good abilities, all things considered. And so when you are thinking about maybe looking at what green is able to provide, I'm honestly pretty dang impressed there. Now, one that I actually do really like is going to be Desert's Call. Now, yes, you aren't necessarily going to have like the Azir ability, which gives Weapon Master to all your Sand Soldier unit tokens, but it still does a really good job at making sure that you can at least have units out on the battlefield. And again, where a lot of this is going to be determined by, showdowns and being able to continue to take and hold battlefields, this is going to be a really fun card for you to be able to consider. And it's repeatable. So not only will you just get 1 Sand Soldier token for 2, which is actually a pretty fair deal, but you can also get 2 in this case and be able to help build up your board and get some combo pieces going. Again, if you also do need some units that are kind of expendable and you can attach some equipment to help you get there, again, Desert Call could be a really fun answer for you. Likewise, one that can really shut down your opponent, though, there isn't necessarily a whole lot here, but Disarming Rake can be a really good unit to use at 3 and a power for 2 might. The 2 might really sucks. The power cost kind of really sucks. But again, when you are going to be going against potentially a Lucian and Jax, or even just a lot of gold that could be out in the battlefield, and you play him and you're just like, yeah, that gear is dead. That gold is dead. Whatever it might be, it can make a really big difference in trying to get you there. You don't necessarily, again, need to put this in your main deck. You can keep it on the side to be able to play in your side deck and then sub it in when you need to. So keep that in mind, because in between games, you're able to use your entire collection that you have as a side deck. And so this can be one to really surprise your opponents there. Now, next, of course, is going to be Feral Strength. I love this. Again, this is going to be something really big, much like what you see with Blood Rage, or yeah, whatever that card is called in red that we just talked about. It has Feral Strength, has 2 cost, can be repeated, and even played at reaction, and it gives a unit +2 this turn. Again, you can do that to 2 different units. You can do that to the same unit and potentially give them up to 4 might added. Now, Guardian of the Passage looks like it can be a pretty good card, and if you're running something like Jax, he might be a good mid to late game unit to be able to play, because again, those gears that you are maybe only having 1 or 2 of might be one that you want to utilize. But again, pretty situational there, but can be a really good option for you to utilize. Next, I do love Lonely Poro. If you pull him, if you pull multiple of him, use it. Biggest thing is that he has the ability that when I die alone, draw 1. In sealed events, one of the biggest assets that you have is the ability to draw cards. So if you're able to, do it. And I really love that Lonely Poro is able to do that. He's a great turn 1 play. You're then able to take a battlefield, and you just leave him there to die. And that can be a very big difference for you to be able to have early on in the game. Now, here's the hard part. Something like Ribbon Dancer, while it is a 3-for-3, that is a good unit, and also Royal Entourage when you play me Ready or Exhaust a Legend. While they do look decent, if you do need like a 3-drop or a turn 2 play, don't get me wrong, Ribbon Dancer can be a good option there. But again, it's not necessarily anything to write home about. It is nice that Ribbon Dancer does add another might to a unit, but One of the bigger cards, though, and one that I absolutely love that can shut down your opponent is Thwonk. Now, this is a powerful card. It's a 2-cost. It can be repeated for 2, played at action speed, and you stun an attacking unit. So you can stun up to 2 attacking units. What can they do about it? Not much. And so that's going to be one of the biggest things. Again, we don't necessarily have a whole ton of counter spells except for Not So Fast. And, otherwise, you do you. You also have Hard Bargain to worry about in purple a little bit, but again, it's going to be a little bit rarer of a card anyway, so you might not even necessarily have to go against that in this case. So something really cool to be able to keep in mind. So Thwonk can be a great addition for you. And again, if you are running a lot more gear heavy, if you pull a Lucian, if you pull a Jax especially, you're going to want something like Brutalizer. It's a 2-cost. It equips for 1 calm, and then when you attach this, attached to me this turn, I have an additional +2, so it can swing in for 3. So really nice if you have a unit that is already able to be readied and just attack right in. Then you attach Brutalizer and you attack him for 3 more might than what it initially would have, which is just absolutely good. Also, one of the more important things in trying to protect your units is going to be potentially saving them. Now, Flash is definitely one that has been able to do that best, being able to select up to 2 units and move them back to base. Of course, that can only be found in Proving Grounds, but this card can be hidden and otherwise played at action speed, and you move any number of friendly units at a battlefield, not both, to their base. Again, a really great way to save your units and allow them to fight for another day. Likewise, Not So Fast, again, could be that counter. I would maybe consider putting that in the side deck, not in the main deck, because it can be situational. Again, we're going to be looking at stuff, but there isn't a whole lot that really targets unless they're in that higher rarity, which is already going to be a lot more rare for our sealed event here. So Not So Fast might not see a whole lot of play to be able to counter a spell, whereas Poro Snack could actually be pretty good because when you play this, draw 1, and when you kill it, draw 1. So again, just a great way to be able to thin your deck out. There are a lot of units that can function well with gears out, so it could be a really nice surprise to get you 2 additional card draw for kind of an expensive cost, but not horrible, all things considered. And again, card draw is king here. And you might pull 1, maybe 2 Stellacorn Herders. If you do, use it, because even just using, especially if you have Aurelia, you can kind of punish with that. But Stellacorn Herder, just when I move, draw 1. And it's going to be a lot like the Treasure Hunter, where if you control a battlefield, you just go back and forth every single turn and whatnot. And then you're going to be able to draw a card each and every move. Again, just that little extra. It does suck that Stellacorn Herder does have, a 4-cost for 3, but that ability is already going to be paying dividends and can be that body to swing in and try to take a battlefield if you have a lot of stuff to be able to add. So really cool to be able to use that. And again, these rares are very good. They're very powerful. Guardian Angel is really good. Heart of Dark Ice adds +3 might this turn as a gear, though it is a little bit expensive. Aurelia, if you pull it, can be solid, but again, you're not necessarily counting on those spells being used. Next, of course, we're going to be going to De Blue. Now, again, blue is really good. One of the biggest things that you are going to be using for this is if you do get like your Ezreal. It's going to be powerful. And of course, what you already get in the Ezreal deck is pretty good because you're counting on trying to use the repeat cost or to target opponents' units twice in a turn so that you are then able to draw a card. That can be very helpful. Now, I really do like what these cards are able to have. Now, one that can be kind of a little bit misleading is that Chemical Cast can be really good, especially as a 1 cost. But again, it is dependent on how many spells you are able to play on an opponent's turn. And if you think that you're going to be able to, and with Ezreal, you very well could, Chemtech Cask can be a really good answer to give you a lot of gold to maintain your runes out instead of in your rune deck. That's going to be one of the biggest things. And you already get a lot of really good options like Frigid Touch you get in the structure deck. If you pull more, use them. Likewise, Wages of Pain, really good card. Probably one of the best cards of blue next to Frigid Touch that you can pull at least in the common and uncommon. And Wages of Pain is insane because you either pay 3, which is awesome, and you deal 3 to unit and play a gold gear token. Okay. And then on top of that, then you can also play it hidden. And this is going to be a very powerful thing. That 3 damage can be a big difference maker. And especially where someone might be swinging in thinking that they're safe to take over a battlefield and then Wages of Pain hits them. All right, cool. Sign me up for the next war. And we'll see how that ends up playing out because you can surprise your opponent and make what would be a victory, a trade, or even a victory in your case because you're going to be able to take out a unit that they thought, oh, I'm just going to be attacking into a plundering Poro. I just need to send a 3 might unit in to take care of that. And it's like, wrong, sir. Wages of Pain. Now, Plundering Poro is going to be a great 2-drop for you to be able to utilize, and also when I conquer, play a Gold Gear token Exhausted. If you have 2 or 3 of them, fine. Feel free to use maybe 2. I wouldn't want to maybe run 3. But you could. And the big reason why is because mid to late game, you're not going to necessarily be able to use him for the conquering ability to be able to utilize him properly. Likewise, again, Breakneck Mech is not good because your mechs have deflect and ganking, but again, you don't have like a Rumble pre-construct. So you're already going to be struggling with the 5 packs on maybe trying to pull things that you would want to need or want to be able to build a mech deck. It's just not going to be possible. Again, though, if you do have a lot of gear that you are able to create, Drop Border is going to be an insane card for you to be able to use because again, if you control 2 or more gear, which can be relatively easy for you to do, then well, when you play me, if you control 2 or more gear, ready me, and that's a 4 for 4 right there for might that you're going to be able to attack in on. Next, that you are going to be able to really help deal with the gold threat, deal with the really in this case the gold threat. This is going to be a good card to maybe consider in your side decking. Because again, when you play me, you may kill a gear with energy cost no more than 1. If you do play a gold gear, that means that you can kill a gear or a gold for a gold, and that's a pretty solid trade, all things considered. So really like that card to be utilized for that. But again, very situational there, so I would want to take that back. And then again, they have some really good cards in the side deck to be able, or in the higher rarities to be able to be utilized. Bellows Breath can be really good. Carb Sharp can be solid. If you do happen to pull an Ornn and you have a lot of gear that you're going to be able to use, play Ornn. He is going to punish your opponents if you do play him. But again, we're not going to be necessarily too worried about that. One that I would stay away from, though, is going to be Rocket Barrage. It just costs way too much. It is nice that you get to deal 4 to a unit at a base or kill a gear. But if you use the repeat, I mean, it's gonna be 8 and 2 power to be able to fully repeat this to maybe deal 8 damage to a unit in a base or kill 2 gear. It's just not worth it. One that might be a little bit surprising, though, that I do really like, that can also be utilized really well with Ezreal, is that is Frostcoat Cub. It's a 3 for 3, and you can sacrifice a Calm Rune to the bottom of your deck to give -2 to a unit this turn. That is a chosen unit. So again, something that already counts as 1 chosen unit there. And then you can even play something like Wages of Pain to finish it off. So you have a 5 might unit in a battlefield. Ugh, that really sucks. Well, Frostcoat Cup, Wages of Pain takes care of it. Now, orange is one of my favorite colors and one that I am going to be seeking out when I am playing sealed. It is just going to be such a powerful color combination with a lot of versatility for you to be able to take the game to your opponent. Now, we have a lot of pretty good commons and uncommons with that too. The captain here, though, not necessarily all the best, but when you do play me, you may draw one or buff me. So in a sealed event, I do rank that a little bit higher on the totem, especially being a 3 and a power. But again, if you are playing him out at the beginning of that game, at the beginning of the game as your turn 1 drop when you're going second, or like even turn 2, 3, or whatever, and you do have to sack a rune, that can really slow you down. And so you got to be a little bit careful about how you go about that. But still, being able to buff or draw one can be really good. And if you are maybe slacking a little bit on the card draw, it might be one that you want to be able to use here. Next that I really love is going to be Doran's Blade, just because it is a 2 and then 1 orange to equip, and it just gives +2. Again, Jax or Lucian both are able to use this, but even if you don't have a legend and champion that are specifically built for equipment, Doran's Blade can still be a really good option for you because you can just add the 2 might. That's going to be something to really keep in mind with that, because again, we're going to be dealing with things a lot more direct. And so we got to be a little bit careful on the showdowns, and Doran's Blade can be that big swing. Now, one that I do actually do like 3 for 3, he has ganking. That can be a very powerful ability. Again, that's one that you're going to want to connect to your with an equipment. And if you are a little bit more equipment heavy, then going from battlefield to battlefield can really throw off your opponent and try to get them answers while you continue to score points. And then you build up your base to be able to, when the Blade Keeper finally gets killed, that you're then able to deal with things. So again, really fun card right there, but I gotta say the best card in this orange color is Punch First. Yes, it has 2 power cost. That sucks. But the fact that you are able to add 5 is going to be so difficult to try to get around that you can keep your units alive and your opponent won't necessarily have an answer there. So I love Punch First as that option. Sea Monkey's okay. It can be a good, if you definitely need a 2-drop or things like that, he's good. If you want also to be able to buff him when going second, you go 3, and he comes in as a 3 for 3, essentially. And so it's not horrible, but again, you probably have better options there. Then, of course, one that I also like, but isn't necessarily good, at least in a sealed event, is going to be Hex Drinker. Again, maybe something to consider in the side deck if you are going against like an Ezreal or things like that, something to keep in mind. But again, we've already seen that there isn't a whole ton of I target the enemy's units here, you know, outside of what blue maybe has. And same with purple has like 1 or 2, but not even a whole ton there either. And that's going to be the hard thing here. And so Hex Drinker, while really good in the meta, be happy if you pull that card, not necessarily the best outside of that. So but still could be really good. Now, one of my favorite cards that I think can really devastate it though is going to be I Can't Be Chosen by Enemy Spells or Abilities with Rune Runner. Solid card. The scary part about that, though, and something to keep in mind, is that it is a 6 for 5. Ruin Runner, really good when you have an already developed board. If you have 2 or 3 units out and you control a battlefield, awesome. If you don't, well, Ruin Runner just feels really slow, and it's nice because your opponent has to be able to get over the 5 might, and that's the only way they can really take down Ruin Runner. So if you have some equipment that is attached to it, it's going to be super solid to be able to utilize, but otherwise it's going to be a little bit lackluster. Then even like if you do have a lot of equipment and you are playing, you know, these kinds of decks with those legends, then I am going to be saying Strike Down is going to be a super solid choice that you are able to use. Now, it says choose an equip-friendly unit. It deals damage equal to its might to an enemy unit anywhere on the board. Awesome. And then detach an equipment from it. And, that's totally worth the cost. And again, there is very little removal in sealed. So the two that I just absolutely love are Punch First and Strike Down, because it is going to help give you that extra edge to get that removal. So something to definitely keep in mind with all of that. And if you're able to do so, use it. And especially those two being at common and uncommon respectively is going to be making such a big difference here. Next, of course, we have Chaos. Now, like what I said, this is going to be the most powerful color combination here. It just gives you so much bang for your buck. And I got to say, first and foremost, one that might be a little bit misleading is going to be Called Shot. Yes, it is very good to look at the top two cards of your main deck and have the ability to be repeated. It does only have a power cost here. That's really good. It can be repeated. But unless you actually have the ability to make a lot of gold, Called Shot might be one that you only want to use once. You don't want to repeat it unless you definitely have the gold to be able to do so. But to try to sacrifice a lot of runes, I mean, to draw two cards, especially of your 25 card deck, can sound good. And in some scenarios, it can be good in your sealed deck. But again, it's kind of, one of those trap cards where it definitely feels like you get a lot of benefit. But if you're sacrificing too many runes from your rune deck, you're shooting yourself in the foot and giving your opponent the chance to really get ahead. Now, one that I think is a little bit slept on here is going to be Fae Porter. Now, it says that when I move to a battlefield, you may recycle a Chaos to move a unit you control to the same battlefield. So it's a 4/4 that is able to move. So if you play a really big unit out, all right, cool. Well, Fae Porter was out last turn anyway. It's already ready. I'm going to move in, sack that rune, and make a really big push to be able to take a battlefield. And in the sealed event, this could be something to really shift the tide into your favor. And I haven't seen this played a whole lot in the main meta, and I can see why. But in a sealed event, it can really be something to give you that edge to get ahead. Now, one of the biggest cards that you're going to be wanting to pull is Overzealous Fan. One of the biggest things is that you're going to want to play and get to a battlefield and then hold a battlefield. If you're able to hold battlefields, you can win this game so much easier in sealed. So Overzealous Fan is one of the best answers for you to have. If you play him as your turn one play, awesome, do it. Because then you can go into a battlefield and then you play your unit from your hand into that battlefield with Overzealous Fan there to back it up, so that you sack Overzealous and you keep the unit there that's supposed to be there. And so it's a great way to guarantee you at least 1 point. And again, with how little removal there is in this set, the only way that you're necessarily going to be able to deal with Overzealous Fan is going to be by attacking into it directly and just allowing that to be activated. Next also is going to be Treasure Hunter. Again, Treasure Hunter and Overzealous Fan, I think, are hand in hand the most powerful for your sealed events. They are such good 2-drops for you to be able to have. Treasure Hunter, when I move, play a gold gear token exhausted. Again, one of your biggest goals is going to be to keep out your runes and stop them from going back into your rune deck so that you can reach your mid to late game way faster than your opponent. If you pool Treasure Hunters, you use them. If you pool Overzealous Fan, you use them. That's just how it is. It's such a powerful card for that reason. And even like something like Cole could be a really good answer too, because it says that when I conquer, play a gold gear token exhausted, and you also get to add 1. So for 1 and a power, you're able to equip it and then immediately go into a battlefield. So if you're going second, you can play out something like a Treasure Hunter and then a Cole, equip it on the following turn, and then immediately take over the other battlefield, and you get it 2 gold, 1 for on the move with Treasure Hunter, 1 for conquering with Cole, and you're already so much further ahead in that case. Also, Boots of Swiftness can be a really good uncommon. It is a 3 and 1 power to equip, and it adds 2, but the biggest thing again is ganking. And we already said that we have a lot of problems with trying to get characters or units out accelerated. That's going to be the biggest thing. But with Boots of Swiftness, you don't necessarily need to. You can play that out right away so your units get readied up in the battlefield. If your opponent's holding the other battlefield, you give ganking with Boots of Swiftness to your most powerful unit there, and then the units in base and your unit in the battlefield can move over at the same time into the other battlefield and try to take it that way. Then again, when your unit does die, just so you guys know, equipment does not get destroyed with that unit. It goes back to base. So you get to use that over and over and over again, and why Boots of Swiftness is one of my favorites. Now, Hard Bargain is... it's tough to say how good it's going to be. When you use it on your opponent's turn, say that they play like something that really gives them a good edge spell card wise, well, odds are they're going to be playing that first. And if you play Hard Bargain, then they just play the other, they tap 2 and they call it good. And that can be the risk and reward because, yeah, you don't necessarily want to be able to leave 2 runes ready at the end of your turn unless you absolutely have to. But also it's a kind of easy counter unless you pay for the repeat cost, and then your opponent has to pay for, but you also paid for the spell. And so that's the big thing. It is a good card for you to be able to use on your turn because if you attack into a battlefield and they play a spell at reaction speed to be able to stop you from taking the battlefield, and then Hard Bargain is utilized, awesome. That's a great answer. But using it on your opponent's turn can sometimes, again, hurt you more than it helps you. And so you got to learn that kind of balance there. One big benefit, though, is that a lot of people aren't anticipating or knowing the set incredibly well. And so they're playing somewhat blind in this sealed event on what you could be playing or what they could be expecting, especially with 3 colors being able to be used in your deck. And so, again, you might have a big edge here on just knowing what is in this set. And so with that, something like Hard Bargain could really catch your opponent off guard. Now, again, probably one of my next favorite cards, this can be played at Hidden, is Windsinger. This is one that my friend Tara has been using a lot in his Sivir deck. And I gotta say, in this sealed event, it could be a big difference maker. First off, it can be a hidden gust. What it says is, 1, you can play it as hidden, like I said, but also when you play me, you may return another unit at a battlefield with 3 might or less to its owner's hand. Woo! That can be really good. And again, that can shut down your opponent early game. If you have like a 2 might unit, or if you even have like your treasure hunter, you go into a battlefield, you hold, you then play Windsinger as a hidden card. They're not going to see that coming, plain and simple. And then they attack in with their 2 or 3 might unit that they were able to get out. And again, you're able to hold the battlefield. So much like what Overzealous Fan is able to do, same with Windsinger in that early game, it is going to be that difference maker. So something for you to keep in mind there. Now, last color here is going to be Order. And Order's one that I do really like, but also it doesn't feel great in a sealed event. It doesn't feel great. They didn't get a whole lot of cards. The main reason why I say that is that, yeah, you get some really good stuff like Guards, which can be played hidden, and it plays a 2 might Sand Soldier unit token, which can be played at a battlefield. Adding +2 might is really good. You also have like Eye of the Herald, which can be equipped and played for 1 and a power, and anytime or when I move, play a 1 might recruit unit token. Really good. But at the same time, it's kind of missing out on a lot of power. Yes, you have something like BF Sword, which is really good. Something like Blood Money to create a lot of gold. And also, Blood Money, when you kill a unit at a battlefield with 2 might or less, you can create a gold unit or a gold token for killing a unit at your enemy's battlefield. If you kill your own unit, cool, well, you get 2 gold. So again, that can be a decent option, but even still, Then you even have something like Death Grip, where you kill a friendly unit to give plus might equal to its might to another friendly unit, draw 1. But also, one thing that can be really good is the direct kill spell that I would be keeping an eye on here. It's Drag Under. It can be played at action. Again, if you have Rek'Sai, really good option here because I cost 2 less to play from anywhere other than your hand, and you get to kill a unit at a battlefield. So again, can be a really good answer here. One that I also really like here is going to be Glass Mixologist. Sorry. You may play a unit with cost no more than 3 and no more than a power from your trash, ignoring its cost. Now, yes, that is going to be a 5 and a power, but still, that could be a really good answer. But again, we're looking at these options, and especially in common and uncommon, which is going to be one of our biggest reasons for playing, said color, is going to be the power that is in those combinations. But it's like, we got Honest Broker. Cool. Well, when it dies, play a Gold Gear token Exhausted. Again, a really good 2-drop. But I wouldn't want to be necessarily being like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I want to play here. So again, to each their own. If you do want to use yellow, it can be definitely one that you are going to want to utilize. But guys, that is going to be all the colors here before you. So hopefully this helps on preparing you on how to go through your draft. One of the biggest things is color combination is going to be really important. Personally, I am going to be prioritizing purple and orange more than anything, and then probably throwing either blue or red in this case. Now, of course, that all is going to depend on what I end up actually pulling from my packs. We could get a curveball where you just pull a ton of orange and not necessarily a whole lot of anything else, or it's kind of scatterbrained a little bit there in that case. So again, familiarize yourself. There is also a draft simulator that I will link again down in the comment below, or in the comments below, or in the description below, that can help you again get better familiarized with all of that. We got more stuff coming your guys' way that is going to be dealing with how to better prepare for these Rift sealed events. Been really fun to research all of this and even test on my own. It's been an absolute blast. And thank you guys so much for being here. Could not do it without you, or I could. It would just be really boring. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are, what colors you're wanting to draft. Let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, guys, have a good one.